So my talk is entitled Universal Gene Editing CAR T-cell therapy. So why universal? It's because actually we have developed over the years an allogenic approach for the CAR T therapy. So there are some advantage over the, I will say, the classical autologous CAR T strategy. So when you are talking autologous, it means that you have to take the cell from the patient, and then you have to manufacture these cells. That means it's one manufacturing campaign for each patient, and at the end the cells are reinfused in the same patient. So all of this process takes some time, and of course a lot can happen during that time. Plus the fact that actually this patient has been quite heavily treated by chemotherapy. That means that the starting material you have there is not really the best material you want to start with. So we saw that it would be much better than to start with an healthy donor. Like that, you can upscale the process, and from one donor you can create hundreds and hundreds of doses. And then you can also create a product that will be off the shelf and ready immediately for the patient when needed. Of course, when you're taking a cell from a third-party donor like that, I mean, what you have to avoid is the graft versus host disease. This is the main effect you want to avoid, and we do that using the gene editing. And we remove from the surface of the T cell the TCR receptor. Like that, the T cell will not attack the whole body, and the CAR will only direct the T cell to the tumor cells. So that's basically the generic process that we have established over the years. So we start with the PBMC from healthy donor. And just like the autologous CAR T, we first transduce the T cell to introduce the CAR, and then we have an extra step of gene editing. As I said before, the basic gene editing step that we are doing is at least removing the TCR from the surface of the T cell receptor. Then you expand your T cells. And you have, before freezing your vial, you have to remove the residual TCR plus T cells, because actually any gene editing step is not 100% efficient, so you have to remove the residual TCR plus cells to have a safe product at the end that will not cause any GVHD within the patient. So using this generic process, 5 products so far has been manufactured. And this is the pipeline of the UCAR-T that are in clinic today. So we have developed our own product against CD23, CD22, and CS1 for AML, ALL, and multiple myeloma. And also our partners are also developing a product targeting CD19 and for ALL and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So all of this product has been manufactured today and are now in clinic. So I will summarize the data we have on UCART19. So this is the first product we have developed at Cellectis, but it's now licensed to Servier. It's co-developed by Servier and Allogene for clinical trial. So for this product, as I said before, we always remove the TCR from the surface of the T cells, but we also remove the CD52 in that case. That makes this T cell resistant to alemtuzumab. I will come back to that. So there are 2 studies going on, one in adult and one in children. So of course the primary objective is the safety of this approach, because safety is really crucial in that case, because we really want to know if we will not trigger any GVHD when we infuse this T cell in our patient. And of course, the second objective is looking at the remission at day 28. So I'm just summarizing the data from the clinical study. So once again, it's not our product anymore, so I cannot really comment and show you new data. So what I'm just doing here is just summarizing what has been presented last year, at the end of last year. So altogether, 21 patients have been infused so far, adults and children. And we didn't see any major adverse effect. Only 14% of the patients developed a grade 3 to 4 CRS, and no major neurotoxicity and graft-versus-host disease. This is really a good achievement for us because this is a proof that this allogeneic approach is quite safe. Plus the fact that in terms of efficacy, 67% of the patients got a complete remission at day 28. And if you look at the patient, because among these 21, actually, 4 patients didn't get alemtuzumab. But if you look at the patient that got the alemtuzumab, got the lymphodepletion using cyclophosphamide, fludarabine, and alemtuzumab, we got a complete remission rate of 82%. Overall, at day 28, 71% of the patients were MRD negative. And as expected, we were able also to see an expansion of the CAR T cell within the patient at day 14. So for us, it's a pretty good data, I think, and it's really the proof that this allogeneic approach is viable and works, actually. And actually, the data that you can see, they are pretty comparable with what was obtained for the autologous approach at the same stage of the development. So all of this was possible because of the TALEN technology that we used. So the TALEN technology, the TALEN basically are heterodimeric protein. So does it work? Yeah. So a heterodimeric protein composed of an array of repeats, here, there, fused to a nuclease domain. And this array of repeats there, each repeat actually is practically identical except of 2 amino acids right there that really drive the specificity to the base. So then by just assembling like that this various RVD as it's called, you see that the NN is going to bind a G, NI is going to bind a A, and so on. So by assembling like that this different RVD, you can then target virtually any sequence of choice. So in opposite to CRISPR, what we have here is really a protein-DNA interaction. Also another difference is that the double-strand break that is triggered there by this FOC1 catalytic domain doesn't generate a blunt end DNA, but it generates a 5' overhang, which actually may favor the homologous recombination rate. So it's a pretty efficient technology since we can get 95% of single knockout. So in that case, I'm showing you here on the left the knockout we got when we want to inactivate the TCR locus. We can also get a gene insertion, so we can get 80% of single gene insertion. So in that case, what we did incorporate the CAR within the TRAC locus. So it's efficient because we can also multiplex it. You can do in the single step a double knockout. Here we remove, for example, on the left here, we remove in one step the TCR at the surface of the T cells together with the MHC class 1 by knocking out the beta-2M gene. And the right also, we did a double knock-in. In that case, we did in this one step, we did inserted the CAR construct within the TRAC locus. In the same time, we did inserted the HLA-E, I will come back to that later, at the beta-2M locus. And it's pretty efficient because we get 40 to 50% of efficiency. So as I was saying before, the protein, the specificity is driven by protein-DNA interaction. And that's actually an advantage for us. Because sometimes when you create a talent, in that case I'm showing you a talent that we have created, targeted PD-1, and in some case you can see that this talent is going to cleave some off-target. But because we have here some protein-DNA interaction, we can go back to the protein and fine-tune this protein. Because at the beginning of the technology, people were using the 4 RVD that are described on this slide, NN, NI, NG, and HD. But today, actually, we have an archive of 400 of this RVD that has been characterized for specificity and their impact on the activity. So that means when we have a talent like that targeting PD-1, for example, with some off-site, you can then go back to your archive of RVD and change specifically the RVD that are causing trouble. Like that, you end up with a new talent that doesn't display anymore any off-site anymore. So we really master this technology, and we can really control the off-site cleavage. So this technology then can be applied, as I said before, to the CAR-T and can really address some of the challenges of this CAR-T therapy. So the obvious one, I was talking earlier about it, is the GVHD, to be able to develop an allogeneic approach, so by removing the TCR from the surface of the T cells. But we can also, for example, improve the overall activity of the CAR-T, and I'm going to give you an example of that. So we and others have thought that it could be interesting to have a T cell, a CAR-T cell, that will secrete a protein of interest, like a cytokine of antibody directing against PD-1 and so on. So here I'm going to give you an example about secretion of IL-12. And that could help to improve the anti-tumor activity of the CAR-T cells or the proliferative capacity and so on. But when you are looking at IL-12, for example, we didn't want to have an overexpression or a simple overexpression of IL-12, which is a pro-inflammatory cytokine. Because having this IL-12 secreted like that all over the body may really have some quite adverse effect. So we thought that it could be interesting to hijack the regulatory pathway of the T cells. And for that here, what we did, as you can see, we have inserted the CAR within the TRAC locus. So that means the CAR is under the is regulated by the endogenous promoter, and we have inserted the IL-12 constriction within the PD-1. That means the expression now of the IL-12 is not going to be overexpressed. The expression is really driven by the PD-1 promoter. So that means it's regulated by the T cells. And if you look at the expression of the PD-1 in T cells, you can see that PD-1 on the left there is really expressed upon stimulation of the T cells, here with the tumor cells. And it's a transient expression. And it can be re-stimulated when you put a new tumor in presence of the T cells. And now, if you look at our construct, the new CAR-T we have designed, you can see that the IL-12 secretion follows the same pattern with 2 peaks of expression. When the IL-12 is not secreted when there is no tumor, and only the presence of the tumor triggers the IL-12 secretion. So in terms of activity, so here I'm showing you an example of killing assay. So on maybe I can. Okay. In black there you have the tumor cell growing. Doesn't work, so I will not use the arrow anymore. So in the black ball here are the tumor growing alone. So then we incubate these tumor cells with either a CAR T cell that has been knocked out for the PD-1 or the CAR T cell that has been engineered for the IL-12 expression, as I said before. And you can say that, and you add the tumor cells every day. And both CAR T cell can control the tumor growth. But then if you challenge with a huge amount of tumor cells, you can see that the CAR T cells with the knockout of PD-1 cannot control the tumor growth anymore. In the opposite, the CAR T cell that express the IL-12 then continue to control and eradicate the tumor cells. The same if we compare with the classic CAR T cells that express the CAR T on the right part of the slide. So both CAR T cells, I mean, with or without IL-12 secretion, can first eradicate the tumor, but then if we re-challenge these CAR T cells with a new tumor cells, you can see that the only one that can eradicate a second time the tumor cells is the one that is really has been engineered to express IL-12. Because IL-12 actually is known to enhance the CD8 cytotoxicity. So this IL-12 expressing first of all, the IL-12 release is really controlled by the CAR T-cell tumor engagement. And because of this IL-12 expression, we have now a CAR T-cell that has a higher short and long-term activity. So what about in vivo? Because remember, what we wanted at the beginning is really to have a CAR T-cell that will be able to deliver the IL-12 on tumor, on target, and avoid the systemic effect of the IL-12. So what we did here, we took some mouse and we engrafted some tumor cells. So on the left, actually it should be on the right, but it's on the left on this slide. So here on the left, you have on black, you have the tumor cells expressing the antigen. In that case, it's a CD22. And on the right, on gray, it's another tumor cell that doesn't express the antigen. And then we infuse these mice by IV with the CAR T. So first of all, in the middle, we look at the localization of different CAR T cells, the CAR T cell with the knockout PD-1 and the CAR T cells with the IL-12 inserted within the PD-1 locus. So both, I mean, the localization is driven by the CAR, so you can find both of these CAR T within the left part where the tumor CD20 plus 2 is located. But then when you look at the expression of IL-12, you can see that most of the IL-12 which is secreted is found on the left legs. I mean, virtually no IL-12 can be found on the right legs. So meaning that we really have a local and tumor-dependent delivery of IL-12. So to summarize this first part, I will say that UCAR-T can be engineered using gene editing to express IL-12 and to express IL-12 on target in a tumor-dependent manner. And this IL-12 also enhance the anti-tumor activity of the CAR T cells. So of course here I just gave you an example about IL-12, but you can think of any kind of protein of interest you can think of. I mean, the other cytokine, antibodies, and so on. And I'll also show you an example of the gene was really upregulated on T-cell activation. But you can think of other pathways that can be used or like that and hijack. For example, epoxy. I mean, when the T-cells are in the epoxy condition, you have some genes that are overexpressed. Then you can use that kind of pathway to design. This is really the first step in the synthetic biology in the CAR T-cell therapy, I think. So another thing that we can manage using gene editing is managing the rejection, I mean the persistence of our CAR T cells. So by design, this allogenic approach, the UCAR T has really designed to not persist too long within the body. By design, they have to be eradicated at one point by the immune system. But in some situations, you may want to increase the therapeutic window. So when you design if we go to the basic, when we design an allogeneic T cells, you want to avoid first the GVH, and to do that, you remove the TCR, and then you want to avoid the host versus graft, to avoid the rejection of your T cell by the immune system from the patient. So the first solution is the lymphodepletion, the preconditioning regimen, and as I said earlier, for the first product we have developed, we introduced the CD52 knockout. Like that, these CAR T cells are really resistant to alantuizumab. Alantuizumab that can be used to prolong the lymphodepletion within this patient. So that, like that, our T cell can expand and eradicate the tumor for a longer time. But let's say alantuizumab cannot be used in all indications. I'm thinking especially about solid tumor. I'm not sure that alantuizumab could be used in such a condition. So what can we do then? So we can then make these CAR T cells invisible to the endogenous T cells. And we are doing that by removing the MHC class I from the surface of CAR T cells by doing the knockout of the B2M gene. So if you do that, so the patient will have is treated first by a cyclophosphamide fludarabine preconditioning regimen to lymphodeplete the patient. So you infuse your T cells, they can persist, expand and persist, and even though the T cell from the patient will come back at one point, our T cells may resist to the endogenous T cell attack. However, it's not exactly like that because there is a risk. If you look at what comes back from after lymphodepletion, NK cells are coming earlier than T cells. And NK cells will recognize your MHC class I negative CAR T cells and will kill them. Fortunately for us, there is some solution that we can bring using gene editing again. But first of all, I'm going to show you some data showing what I just said. So here we have created a population of cells. We did a beta-2M knockout. We did here a beta-2M knockout and a TCR knockout. So we did it in a such way that we have the four population that we can follow that after incubation with the effector T cells. And if you incubate this population of cells, it doesn't work so great. Okay? So if you incubate this population of cells with, I went too far actually, with T cells, allo-responsive T cells, you see that the only cell that resists to the allo-responsive attack of the T cell is the one that has been depleted for the beta-2M, showing you that the TCR knockout beta-2M UCAR-T really resists to allo-responsive T cells. However, if you do the same now and incubate the T cells like that, TCR minus, beta-2M minus with NK cells, you see that in that case, the one that disappear at exactly the same spaces, I mean, missing the MHC class I. That means if you just do the beta-2M knockout within your CAR T cells, you will have generated CAR T cells sensitive to NK cells. So there is a solution because you can use some NK inhibitors such like HLA. It's well known that HLA can bind the NKG2A receptor at the surface of the NK cells and inhibit the killing activities. So what we did in that case, we have inserted here the CAR within the TRAC locus and the HLE within the beta-2M locus. So the efficiency we can get is about 90%, as I said earlier, of double knockout, TCR minus and beta-2M minus, and 40 and let's say 50 these days of double knock-in, meaning that you have insertion of the CAR at the TRAC locus and insertion of the HLA construct at the beta-2M locus. And then, if you do the same now and incubate with your NK cells, you see that The cell that doesn't have any HLA-E minus, you see that the MHC class 1 cell population decrease, but if you take the same cells, the UCAR-T cells, that express the HLA-E, you restore the, you prevent the NK attack. So here we have a solution. Basically, if you have a CAR-T cell which is beta-2M and minus and HLA-E plus, it will resist the T cell and NK attack. So I just show you some data here just to summarize that the beta-2M is pretty efficient to create a CAR-T cell that will resist the alloreactive T cells. And actually, the beta-2M alone could be sufficient. We may not need all the time to express the HLA-E. There is some indication, AML, for example. If you look in the literature, you will see that in AML, these people have been so heavily treated that they have only a few NK left in their blood, and also the NK are not really active. So in that case, maybe a beta-2M knockout could be sufficient to increase the therapeutic window for the CAR-T cell therapy. In other case, if you really need to take care of the NK cells, I just show you that by expressing NK inhibitors such as HLA-E, will allow you to create a CAR-T cell that will resist the NK attack. And I think I will stop there. I hope I gave you an example of what the power of the gene editing in the CAR-T cells, and we can envision that what I show you today about beta-2M, HLA-E, and so on, will be in the future version, in the future product that we are developing here at Cellectis. Thank you.
Talk. I think we've got time for one question, if anybody has anything for Philippe. Do you want to come to the microphone, or you can try, but...
I think you have to take a microphone.
You're going to have to come to the microphone, I'm sorry.
It's not better.
Okay, here, use mine.
For preparation of allogenic T cells for for different patients, do you care at this stage also for the culture medium, culture platform, freezing solutions, and all that kind?
I mean, yeah, for the GMP manufacturing process, of course, we did quite a lot of work about the condition of culturing these T cells, the cocktail, cytokine.
Now you have to speak to the microphone.
Yeah, so yeah, for the manufacturing condition to produce these CAR-T cells, so we did quite a lot of work. We have been working a lot of years to try to improve this, to have a robust process. So we play with the medium, with the activation, for sure, with the cytokine we use, with the way you shake your cells, that kind of stuff. Yeah, all the stuff has been taken care of.
So are you using serum-free, xeno-free culture conditions or ACF culture conditions, or use still a serum-containing medium?
Actually, I think it depends on the product, actually. Each product has been developed independently, so each product really is has a special process in terms of condition and cytokine and so on. But in some of them, we are using human serum.
Thank you. Okay, one quick question.
Hi, thank you. Murray Robinson at Medisix. Great presentation. Interesting about the HLE expression. We think about HLE typically in NK cells, but we recently have all seen activated expression in T cells. So do you see any in-cis interactions between T cell-based NKG2A and HLA-E in the expression?
No, actually, it's going to be very fast to answer this question. We didn't see that kind of interaction so far. Yeah. But actually, we didn't look at it either. So maybe that I know that we will have a look. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all the speakers in this session, and if you'll join me in doing that, thank you.